CRN Wilder here, and it is time, that's right, it is time for Kimberly Dvorak, our award-winning national security and border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. By the way, Kimberly is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She is also a TV correspondent, CW6 News, San Diego, One American News Network, her website, the KD Report. Kimberly,
Hi.
check in with me, please.
How are you doing, Chuck?
You know what? I'm doing okay, and I debated whether to bring this up or not, but you almost made it to the final. Yes.
I knew it. Yeah, UCLA
fan there.
sadly did not, my Bruins sadly did not make the big game that's taking place tonight in Texas, but they had an incredible and improbable run up through in making it into the Final Four. They knocked off number one Michigan. I mean, it was an incredible run that they had, and it was an overtime loss, which was fitting for them to, take it all the way into overtime. And it was this just random one-shot bucket that that they lost by. So I was pretty sad on Saturday about that, and then on Sunday I got to watch golf, and it's the basically the Dinah Shore tournament out there. It's one of the majors for women's golf, and a sophomore from UCLA actually won the whole thing and got to jump in Poppy's pond. So I became happy. Forget about the other stuff. I was happy again.
Well, let me ask you something. Did that sophomore from UCLA make a hole-in-one?
I don't know. Did she? Inquiring minds want to know.
The guy from Kazanta, he made a basket in one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, here's the most important thing. I'm sure that part of this downfall of UCLA basketball may have been your fault. Let me ask you the question.
Uh-oh.
Were you wearing your little cheerleading uniform when it was going on or not?
No, but I had my Bruins sweatshirt on.
Your fault. All right. Well, we got some serious stuff to talk about, and mainly the cartels.
Yeah.
You start thinking about, boy, this is the humanitarian thing to do. Let's let everybody into the United States because we're the greatest country in the world. Why are we the greatest? We don't want to talk about that. We just want to bring in everybody. Oh, everybody from A to Z. And let's go A, B, C, cartels.
Yeah.
All right, take it away there, Kimberly.
Yeah, I got word over the weekend, and it was kind of disturbing news that there's been increased cartel activity in the state of Texas. No surprise, Texas taking on the lion's share of the migrants that are crossing the border. This, of course, is by design, with the cartels looking at, here's the shiny object over here, and we'll be over here doing whatever it is we're going to do. But that typically happens, on a daily basis when it comes to getting drugs or smuggling, whether it's terrorists or migrants or children across the border. They're really good at doing that. They've been doing it for years. But what caught my eye this weekend, and some of the inside information that I got, is that there's a broader turf war actually playing out in Texas. And this means that the predominant cartel, the Sinaloa cartel, who's run by Mr. Zambata, much to what everybody thinks is who actually runs that cartel, but he's the money man, the finance guy who doesn't get in front of the camera. He has a son sitting up in Chicago in jail because when he crossed across the border and he talked to the FBI, they were working as an informant, and the U.S. government picked him up and put him in jail. He should be out in a couple of years as a hero. Anyways, getting back to the cartel, what's happening, we have the new generation cartel, which are very young, very violent, very terrorist-like gang who's vying for a weakening Sinaloa cartel. And the other cartel that's playing a role in this is the Los Zetas. And the Los Zetas they've actually split in two. And of course, your viewers or listeners are actually going to know this because we've talked about this many times, that the U.S. actually trained the many founding members of the Los Zetas in the special operations aspect of this. So they've been trained.
We need to explain. The U.S. trained them to go and fight the cartel.
Exactly, and they decided
they could make
Yeah, and
They
they decided
make more money working for the cartel, right?
no, they actually started their own cartel because they knew they could make more money at in the end.
Oh, okay, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so I mean, and so just, the listeners can actually look at this and see what's going on, like in the Middle East, where we spent all this money to train the Syrian free rebels, the doctors and dentists that were out there, and they turned out to be like Al Qaeda and Al Nusra terrorists. So we actually paid for that whole debacle as well. This is the same thing playing out, but you've got these two factions inside Texas, and they're taking advantage. And some are like even alluding to that they've actually been, in the Central American countries trying to round up as many undocumented minors as they could get up across the border, because this would provide that opportunity they need to gain that access into the United States. And you're seeing this play out, and they're able to play this out because law enforcement of all stripes have become babysitters instead of law enforcement officers. And so you're starting to see movement. And if you see three cartels fighting, and by three I mean Sinaloa and the New Generation and the Los Zetas, you're going to have, that sets up a whole bunch of violence that's taking place in Texas. And this is what Governor Greg Abbott is looking at and saying, we need to finish that wall, even if we do it ourselves, because we cannot allow this stuff to continue, because this is what's going to drive a wedge in this country. And, perhaps this could be the last stand in, the New Alamo last stand here, because it's just that the cartels are able to move so far north without detection of any law enforcement, because they're so tied up with what's going on at the border right now.
Kimberly, before you came on, well, actually before I went on the air, because I knew we were going to talk about cartels, and I did a real quick research, and I ran across the top 13 cartel cities in the United States, and it actually was reported in 2021. So I said, well, this is pretty interesting. But Texas, all right? In Texas, you got standing at number 12, Dallas. Let me see, number 9, Houston. Number 7, El Paso. So see, they've got three.
Major cities,
There's San Francisco and Los Angeles, kind of tied there or whatever. But
and for them, it's control. Inside Texas, for them, is to be in control of the I-35, freeway system, because that's how you're going to move your drugs north. And most of them move them north. I mean, they spread out across the country, of course, but a hub is Chicago. And you need control of that to get your products and your, and also, we're seeing more and more reports that we're seeing not only criminals that have been deported that are coming back across the border, but, terrorists. And, that is a major concern, because that presents national security. And one other thing to put together to finish the third leg of this stool that we're talking about here is that once the Biden administration took office, they actually don't get along whatsoever with the president of Mexico. So now you have a situation where DEA and FBI and DHS used to, on a daily basis, would share intel, would work with one another. And since Biden has come into office, that has completely dried up, and we are not getting information from Mexico on these cartels. And so this is, getting this perfect storm here, where these cartels know that, look, they're not getting intel, so hey, we have nothing to lose. We want to, take out the Sinaloa cartel. We want the lucrative drug routes. So, you look at this, and while everybody's focused on the unaccompanied minors, and that's a tragedy, and that should not be happening, obviously. But I think the bigger picture here is this war that is going to, take root in the United States, and it's going to be. You're seeing more and more of these cities being run by gang members, by cartel members, by protesting, unrest. Don't trust the police. You're seeing all of these issues, and people in this country need to be prepared for what may come next. Yeah,
and the people who are running a lot of these operations, the majority of them are Mexican nationals that are living in the United States legally right now, because they're the ones they can trust. But let me tell you something, Mr. Biden outdid Trump. I have another report here As President Joe Biden's administration grapples with the surge of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border, the monthly U.S. drug overdose deaths reached an all-time high.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, so the cartels play in all of this. You know, they're the ones that are getting the drugs in this country. People will argue, well, people, you know, you got to let people do what they're going to do. If they're going to overdose on drugs, whatever, that's the risk you take. Well, it's not the risk you take. I mean, China is involved in some of the drug movement into this country as well, and that's one of our chief enemies right now. And I just think that, you know, you look at this, we're not looking at the bigger picture when we see the role that these cartels can play into our lives on a daily basis. And then I also, I don't know if anybody's watching online, I wrote a story back in 2012 under Barack Obama. So of course Joe Biden was vice president at the time. I'm not certain if he remembers that, but he was. And so, you know, I went back and reread this story. The headline of the story: Obama administration deemed border security murders as acceptable risks. So as far back as 2012, President Biden, then vice president, did not have an issue with the deaths that were surrounding this. And of course, you know, we talk about, you know, Brian Terry, the Border Patrol agent who was murdered in Arizona.
Right.
This was a factor. And, you know, we had Janet Napolitano, who's doing a great job with the Pac-12 schools. Just kidding. Saying that the, you know, Border Patrol agents needed to use the rubber bullets, and obviously when they're facing RIP crews that are heavily armed, you know, officers and law enforcement aren't going to do too well using rubber bullets. But this is something that's been policy dating back to 2012 under the Obama-Biden administration. So, you know, the president has a lot to answer for here. I'd like to see some of the media sitting at the White House talk to Jen Psaki and ask her some questions about this and what is acceptable with this administration, with the humanitarian crisis, not to mention the fact that we are no longer on talking terms as far as the cartels and intel with our neighbor to the south, which is disturbing beyond belief. So who's looking at this? You know, or maybe some of these enemies in the Middle East are going, hey, wait a minute, this is our way into the country, and they don't even have to try very hard.
You know, there was another report that came out, and I don't have it right here in front of me, but Mexico's president incorporated a thing, and I believe it was just towards the end of the Trump administration, and it said that the United States could no longer send people across the border, you know, to work undercover without telling them that they were actually working undercover.
Yeah,
and then
that's kind of the point of it, but
yeah. Mark Morgan, he was head of U.S. Customs and Border Protection until January, and he says you don't know who you can trust, you don't know who's corrupt, and that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
If U.S. investigators are forced to reveal their sources to the Mexican government, he said, there's a strong likelihood that those sources will wind up dead.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people come out with stuff, you know, and they say, oh, this looks real good on paper. Yeah. Yeah, but not in the field.
Yeah. So with what's going on with the migrants at the border, this is what the DEA said a couple days ago. They said the big winners of this are the cartels. It's just what the cartels want to do so they can expand their reach for smuggling drugs into the United States. And he followed up saying that the human intelligence is drying up on all levels. So if we're working on, you know, counterterrorism task force, that intel is drying up across the board. And it's essentially, you know, the Biden directive that's coming out and saying, you know what, we're just not going to do anything about this. I'm not certain that Biden is fully aware of what's going on, but the people who are around him who are running things are certainly aware of what's going on down there, and they're certainly aware of what this could do potentially to our national security, and not to mention to, you know, our country, you know, a week down the road, 2 years down the road, it doesn't matter. This is going to change the way America is fundamentally.
Yeah, and you know, sanctuary cities, boy, you know, that was like the tip of the iceberg. And just over the weekend, I guess, Republican Governor of Montana, he signed new legislation that bans so-called sanctuary cities from being established in his state. And they said they don't have any sanctuary cities right now, but he's just thinking ahead.
Yeah, thinking ahead, and that's a good idea, because there's another report on the migrants, and I think governors in red states primarily looking at the dollar figure of the taxpayers in that state. So the Center for Immigration Study released a report saying that it cost approximately, for if amnesty were to be given to all of these migrants that have come into the country this year, just this year, the net cost on Social Security and Medicare is about $129,000 per recipient per year. About 10 million illegal immigrants, if they receive that cost over the lifetime, $1.3 trillion. $1.3 trillion. Nobody's talking about if we allow 2 million people in our country, which President Biden said obviously we can absorb 2 million per year into this country. Where are they going to live? We have a housing crisis. Where are these people going to live? And, what are they doing to the infrastructure? Because the infrastructure bill that we've gotten from the White House so far doesn't really contain a lot of infrastructure. And these people will be using that infrastructure. And so what happens to that? So, there are so many...
Maybe they'll just have to turn over all those wonderful little high-class motels that hotels they're being put into,
Absolutely.
We got to take a break. We're going to be Dvorak. And her website, thekdreport.com. I was seeing where Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin, Democrat, Illinois, in part of your report told reporters last month, the prospects of passing a comprehensive immigration bill aren't good, citing the challenges facing Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She'll get on him. Are you afraid of me? What? Don't say that out loud.
Let me tell you, it's funny how now we have this full-blown crisis along the border and all along through, whether they're in Congress or Senate or running for president, they all talked about one of the first things was going to be this comprehensive immigration reform, and now they can't run away from it fast enough because they know it's not only is it a political hot potato for them because it highlights that they seriously miscalculated what was going to happen along the border, but the fact that the voters, even in Texas, in traditionally blue counties, Trump actually won by double digits because the people who live in these counties that are near the border, they don't want, nor do they want to have to take care of these people for a long time. You have to think, people coming across the border now, whether they're migrant children or migrants, you have to remember that they are not educated. So these people are not going to start the next Facebook. They're not going to start the next Twitter. These people are going to have to be educated, and that comes at a cost, with taxpayers paying that cost. They're going to have to be taken care of health-wise. How long do Americans have to wait in line to visit the doctor because now we've got an influx of people that are going to have to be taken care of? And migrants and asylum seekers in this country, they're traditionally the very most expensive people to take into this country because they require longest term financial assessments because they just don't have any skills to do anything, much more than making minimum wage at best. So that comes at a cost. It's going to come at a cost, and this isn't a winning topic for the Democrats going into 22.
Well, Kimberly, one of your favorite places, San Diego, California, apparently they're getting to get in ahead of the line there when it comes to going to school, huh?
Yeah, they are. Not only that, but you've got people. They're over capacity now in San Diego Convention Center, which is a very nice convention center. It's very, they're actually going to reopen to their first convention in August. But you look at the people again that are coming into the country, and it seems like they're getting more. They're getting preference. People who are waiting in this country to come in legally and spend the money and go through the background checks and so on, they're very upset with the situation, and we don't even know who these people are. Do you really think that we can trust a passport from Guatemala? You just don't know, and we don't know who these people are, and we don't know why they're coming Obviously, a lot of them will come for the better life. I read a report this
Yeah.
morning. They're going to be looking for parents to maybe possibly come this direction, take care of the kids that they sent up through Mexico. So, I mean, there are a lot of things
And let
on
me
the
go
plate.
way out. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll go way out and say, like you're saying, you don't know who they are. What passport can you trust?
Yeah.
How do you know they're not the nephew of the 9/11 bombers?
Yeah.
Just, how
You
do
don't know.
You don't.
You don't know.
Absolutely. Hey, we've run out of time, and excellent report, and look forward to next week. Kimberly Dvorak, you spell that last name Dvorak, and she streams live at periscope.com. You still doing that? Periscope.
No, not really anymore. I'm doing
All right,
Facebook
well-
till they kick me off.
Yeah, we'll scratch that. Okay, Facebook. You spell that? FACE. All right. Thank you very much. Look forward to our next
Thanks,
visit.
Jack.
Coming up next,